Well, welcome this afternoon. My name is Sue Van Voris, and I'm over in Academic Support Resources, and you are kind of our first group that we're kicking off with the whole ESUP piece that we want to give you kind of the details that you're going to need in the future. I'm going to let you folks know that you are a very important group, because without your talents and abilities in making sure we have classrooms available and courses available, we really wouldn't need to be here, would we? So you are a key group. The other thing with the ESUP project is we were asked to really take a look at the number of modifications we had made to our system and eliminate as many of those as possible so that we don't have to go through this semi-intensive upgrade on a regular basis. We had modified the system so much, actually, we didn't even know what some of the screens really looked like. And so we really took a step back. PeopleSoft has gone a long way, and now we can really utilize that system. So this is the group that really is impacted the most with the upgrade, which is why we want to make sure that you are very comfortable with some of the changes coming down the pike. And so Sarah's going to take you through a few things. For your buddies that aren't here, because there's about 600 of you across campus that do this, make sure you kind of say you missed a really important meeting, make sure you hit the next one, or make sure you do update them. Because like I said, what you do is really key at this institution. The reason we can take out the modifications is because you are very intelligent, and we know that you can learn a new process, because we all love change at this institution. And so I just want to make sure that you're very comfortable with that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she can take it away.
But we're glad to be able to do this all together as a group virtually so that we can get a lot of questions answered, because we know that this is something that you've all been anticipating and knowing and hearing about for so long. And so we are glad that you're able to be here today. In case you didn't remember, we're here to talk about ESUP, the Enterprise Systems Upgrade Program. And I know that we've been sharing with you throughout the last years what's been going on in this process. And really, it's been a long process. This kicked off back in the fall of 2012, and we're still working towards this goal here. In the upgrade, we're moving to PeopleSoft 9.0. And so you've all heard that, and you know that we've been looking at the different processes, and this impacts all of the university, not just scheduling and the student records aspects, but HR and student finance as well. And so there's a lot to be looked at across the university, and we know that, as Sue said, we've got a lot of changes in our little world here too. And so we want to make sure that you all have a chance to hear about some of those changes as early on as possible, to really start to understand how it'll impact the different processes that you're going through and your individual work processes. Just from a real high level, I did want to let you know that there's a lot that's going on between now and when the PeopleSoft 9.0 upgrade actually happens. Right now, we're slated to do the upgrade in February of 2015. So that's not that far away. It sounds like it might be, and it might feel like February still, but we're making our way. So there's a lot of building, there's testing being done. We're still working. A little bit later on, I'm going to show you some screenshots about what some of the maintain schedule of classes pages are going to look like for you all in 9.0, but they're all still in development. So they're subject to change. We know that some of it's going to change a little bit, but they're starting to do that building and that testing to make sure that once we finally go live, it's going to work well for everybody. Once the functional testing is complete, then we're really going to start doing, on the back end, the analysts are going to be doing even more testing. Then we're going to start doing that testing for, okay, well, we know that when we do the upgrade, we're going to have to go offline for a period of time. And so they'll do real practice runs in development for how long is it going to take? How much time do we really need to be offline? Do we need 10 days? Do we need 2 hours? Do we need 5 days? What is it that's really needed? And they're going to try to shrink that time and shrink that time so that by the time we get to the actual upgrade, it will be a fine, well-oiled machine. They'll already know what they're going to be doing. They'll have done it multiple times. It'll be tested and tested and tested so that when we go live, we'll be ready and we'll really have something there. And once we actually do go live, there will be so much support for you. And you all are familiar with the training team, and they're going to be there for you to walk you through any of the processes and answer any questions that you may have during that time. So, and that will be available ongoing. There will be that support. So we just want to let you know there is a lot happening behind the scenes from now until when we actually do go live. So what's changing, right? There's a lot that's changing. And so there is a website that's already out there, upgrade.umn.edu, and you're welcome to go through that website, and you could spend days, hours upon hours every day and look at every single change document that's been. There are multiple teams that have been reviewing all of the business processes that are associated with PeopleSoft 8.9, the version we're on now. And you can really dive into them and learn as much as you possibly want. That's all out there, and this link is here, and we'll share this presentation with you later. And it's been out there. You know, this project has really worked hard to be transparent and make sure that everything we're doing behind the scenes is available to folks anywhere, so you can kind of choose your involvement level. You can receive newsletters from this site, so you can click on the link there if you want to sign up to receive e-newsletters or blog posts, etc. But what we're doing today is really going to take a deep dive into the schedule of classes area so that you don't have to do all of that diving and sifting for information yourself. So that we'll do some of that for you and say, okay, look, there's a lot of information out here, but this is some stuff that we think you're really going to care a lot about. And that really is going to be focused on schedule of classes. So the schedule of classes was one of those areas that had a large number of modifications in the original, in 8.9. And we did that because we were trying to be helpful, right? We didn't create modifications just for fun. We did that with every modification. There was some justification behind it saying this is going to make the process easier for our department schedulers across the Twin Cities campus, across the Duluth campus, across all the campuses where ECS is being used. And so with that being said, the original 76, we actually decreased that number of mods and we're down to 34. We didn't go strictly vanilla. We didn't say we can use everything just as it is delivered. We said these 34 mods, we really need to keep them. And that was because we want to make sure that you all are able to continue to do the work that you do in an efficient manner. And so we did. We worked to make sure that some of these changes would still be in place so that the Twin Cities and the Duluth, the business processes that we have on the university campus are able to continue. Now, some of the modifications we took out were things that may have made your life a little easier, likely made your life a little easier, but we took them away because they were not going to save so much time, or there was a lot of discussion surrounding each and every one. I'll also say that some of the modifications we didn't need anymore, not because we decided they weren't necessary anymore, but because they're now standard in PeopleSoft 9.0. So the folks at PeopleSoft, they pay attention. They see what modifications are being made across various campuses and across higher education, and they notice that some of the modifications that we had made, really they should implement for everybody. And so we have some of those in place too. So some of these, it won't feel quite like a 55% decrease in changes in the new system. And so that's important to know. Part of the reason to move to more of a vanilla or delivered system is because it really assists with the maintenance ongoing as well. And so the university can really optimize their efficiencies by using as much of the delivered functionality in PeopleSoft as they possibly can. And so we really did strive to do that when we were reviewing these, the schedule of classes and the modifications that we had made to the systems. It was a really intense process, and lots of good information came out of it. And I think we all learned a lot. And so I'm excited to kind of share some of the functionality with you. I do have a few examples of the different types of changes that are happening. There's again a link on this page, so if you want to see a full listing of the types of changes that are happening in PeopleSoft 9.0 for schedule of classes, you can definitely go see them. And later on, as I mentioned before, I am going to show you some screenshots, and so I think sometimes that's a little bit more telling. but there are some changes. So some of the things that we're used to seeing, we aren't going to see anymore in 9.0. And those are things like, you know, when you click on the magnifying glass by the session code and maintain schedule of classes basic data. When you click on that now, you see a list of the different sessions, and right next to it is a list of the date parameters for each of those sessions. Those dates will no longer appear there. That was a modification that we put in the system. Rather than that, you will just pick the session, and we will likely have what we call a related content link nearby. So we'll be able to click on that, and it will take you to a website that will actually list the session codes and the dates that are associated with them. So those are the types of changes that we're going to see on the actual screens, so in some of the functionality. And so you won't be clicking there thinking, where did those dates go? What happened? They aren't there, and so we'll link to them in another way. Some of the tabs and the field order might be a little bit different. We tried to keep it as consistent as possible, but there are some areas where the tabbing may not quite match up the way it does now. You may remember, it wasn't actually that long ago, that we added in a modification where instead of it saying access, it says grade access. So on the meetings pattern down below where you're giving instructors grade access, the label for that field will now just say access. It won't say grade access. Now you all know what that means, and you know to look for that field, but as a new employee and in new training, that might be something that we pay closer attention to because it's not as explanatory anymore what kind of access they're giving. But those are some of the modifications that we're taking out of the system. One of the functional impacts that we're going to see is that the facility ID field on the meetings page of maintain schedule of classes, the facility ID field is going to be grayed out. And so let's talk a little bit more about an example of what that individual change will mean. So for those of you who currently manage departmental lab spaces or conference rooms or meeting rooms, anybody who is scheduling and managing a space on campus and might assign that to a class, typically you would just type that right into that facility ID field and not think about it again. Once we move to PeopleSoft 9.0 after the upgrade, you will be using Astro Schedule to enter in all of your room assignments for rooms that you manage specifically. So we'll there is an Astro Schedule academics training that will be coming your way, so you don't need to worry about how do I do that and what on earth will I do. It'll be there for you, and so you'll self-identify. And this won't impact all schedulers because not everybody has rooms that they individually manage. But for those of you that do, you will go ahead and use Astro Schedule to directly assign rooms to your classes. I'm just waiting for a little gauging feedback in the room. Some of the reasoning, rationale behind this decision, there's a lot of it, and I can tell you the discussion went on for quite some time. But some of it is just that the security tables behind the scenes that manage access to individual rooms in PeopleSoft is magnificently large. It's huge, and it's so much to maintain. And every time there's a patch upgrade or any little upgrade, it was hours and hours and hours and days of testing for the BAs. And it's not necessary because we have another system that actually will do assignments and will check conflicts at the same time. And that's not something we had in PeopleSoft. In PeopleSoft, if you assigned a room now and you double booked your own conference room, you either had to wait for the semester start, find out, or you'd wait for an email from OCM Sched, from the scheduling office, to say, hey, did you intend to double book your conference room? And then you'd kind of be back to square one. And so this will really allow for some efficiencies there and for you to really see what kind of space utilization you have in those rooms. You have a question here, and so Julie, I'm gonna.
So the schedulers will schedule it for.
I don't think they're going to be able to hear you.
I can repeat the question maybe, or do you want to write it over there?
So those.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Julie. Sorry.
1 second here. We got to play that game.
All right.
So. Sorry.
I just want to be clear. So the schedulers will schedule the class in ECS, and then they'll go into Astra and have to schedule it again in Astra? Is that how it'll work?
Well, it'll be a little different than that. So schedulers will go into the maintain schedule of classes, and they'll schedule their classes directly there. And there's an interface that works between Astro Schedule and PeopleSoft. So as soon as you put that class into PeopleSoft, it will come down and automatically be in Astro Schedule. So once you go into Astra, all you have to do is assign the room. So you'll only be, with classes in Astro Schedule, you can only manipulate the room assignment. You can't change the times and the days. That will always happen in PeopleSoft, and that's the system of record for all classes at the University of Minnesota. But just the room assignment is all you would need to add. You wouldn't need to recreate something in Astra. Good question. And there will be lots more of those. We'll definitely have lots of informational sessions about that as time moves forward. Okay.
Sarah, excuse me, we have a question from West Bank.
So with the, in addition to in PeopleSoft directly, the modifications that we made, there are other systems that the university has built. So we call a lot of these the pillar applications or individual processes here on campus. And we're retiring those applications and processes. And those include things like final and supplemental grading. We'll still distribute grades, and grades will still happen, but they won't be done using the system that's now called final and supplemental grading systems. The class schedule. There will, of course, still be a class schedule, but it won't look like it does now. It will look very different. It won't be very maroon and gold. It will be more PeopleSoft feel. Look, but the functionality remains, that you're still going to be able to look up classes, and you'll still get to see times and days, and students will still be able to access, and faculty will still be able to access the class schedule. In the same way, class search, course guide will be retired. ECS, as we know it, is also going to be retired. Now you'll still schedule, right? So we're not worrying about that. There's plenty of scheduling to be done. But what we're doing is actually introducing a completely new system. And so rather than scheduling in ECS, we have a new subset of panels in PeopleSoft entitled Collaborative Class Scheduling, CCS. So goodbye to ECS and hello to CCS. And we're changing that. There are a significant number of modifications that are being made to the system, but not so many that they won't look familiar once you get there. But we're also changing the process. So I talked a little bit about the security tables that are hiding behind that facility ID field. There are also enumerative number of security tables and lots of modifications hiding behind this process, this ECS process that we've known and grown to love. I'm not really sure if that's true. But where we have period 1, we have ECS period 2, we have ECS period 3, and ECS period 4. And we all know what we're supposed to do during each of those periods, and we all know, but having those 4 distinct periods creates a lot of modifications and customizations in the system. And so we're going to move away from that, and we've created a new subset of panels, the Collaborative Class Scheduling, so CCS. So what's that going to look like? Well, this is a little bit what it's going to look like. This is just a generic summer, fall, spring production timeline. So what you're seeing, we have a time period where scheduling is open. This is the time period. So up front here, kind of this period here for spring, this is where you're going to build your schedule build. All happens during that first open I'm not going to use the word period ever again. I get like a little buzz or zap every time it comes out of my mouth. So during this first open time, this is when you'll be building your schedule. And we will close then the scheduling production timeline, and we'll do all of the batch room assignments. just like we do now during ECS period 2. We give you time to build your schedule during period 1. We close during period 2, that's access, so we can do our batch room assignments, and then we reopen. And when we reopen, you have access again. But for you, what this means is it's a simplification of the process. So instead of having to remember, what can I do during period 1? What can I do during period 3? How does that change during period 4? You know that the system is either open or it's closed. Your individual access does not change during that time. Open, closed, open. What might change, and you can rest assured that you will hear from some folks in your colleges, is that the processes might change. So your college may say, I've got some ideas for what you can do during this second open maintenance time and what we'd like to see you doing during this time. And we will continue to say that the schedule really needs to be as close to final as it can be by the time we get to batch scheduling, because we really can't guarantee room assignments after that batch scheduling time has occurred. So it would just be a one-off maintenance type cycle after that. Just going to take a little pause to see if there are any questions about how the production timeline might look while we're here.
We have a question on West Bank.
Clear as day. I love it.
Sarah, can you hear us?
I can.
We have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
My question is the previous slide where we talked about priority registration. If it's not your own department room, but you have a group of labs on the West Bank and you have current access to request those labs, I understand that we can still have that access, but we have to do it via an email. And I just want to make sure, separate from the rooms that are in our department, we can also request those labs.
The question was on the previous slide with the priority scheduling, and if you are a department with access to another lab, let's say, owned by another department, would you still maintain access to those through the email process that's defined here?
The lab is centrally scheduled.
Right.
We used to be able to put in like it's 440 blade, and we would be able to request it for our staff classes up front ahead of time.
So this would be like a computer lab and be able to schedule it ahead of time instead of in through the batch scheduling process.
So if I understand the question correctly, so wondering about how scheduling will happen for rooms that you don't manage, but you typically have access to before the batch scheduling begins. And most of that scheduling will occur as it does now, which is through an email process. And oftentimes, so if I, if Peggy wanted to use one of Colleen, she would typically email Colleen, ask for permission. There might be something under the table that happens. I don't know about that. I don't want to see that part. But then she would get her approval, and then typically then Peggy would just forward that to me, so or to ocmsched@umn.edu, not to me personally, but to ocmsched. And then that way we understand that the approval has been granted from another departmental space, and we prefer to do that. We know there's not too many folks out there making rogue room assignments, but it's helpful for us to have that background documentation. And so we would see those come in through our office, and that's a lot of times how those other department rooms would happen. And the same would be true of computer labs, or other lab space that you might use. You could just forward an email if it's something that the Office of Classroom Management doesn't manage the space specifically for. Does that answer the question, Jeremy? And I'm sorry.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything else before I move along?
If they're talking about
We have one more.
from
Okay.
to an open and close, and right now, period 4, you need college permission to cancel any classes. The system is just going to be an open and close thing, and I know that you said that the colleges are determining certain things. Will there be some kind of hard and fast technology thing where you couldn't cancel a class without getting That makes sense?
The question is about in existing systems with Period 4, you require collegiate level approval before canceling a course. And with the new system, we understand there will be procedures set up at the college level for canceling, but is there a technology reason or block to prevent the courses being canceled?
That's a great question. That was intense. So that is a good question, and it actually leads a little bit into what I'm about to talk about. And so there is, in a short answer, yes, are some safety measures put in place so that classes can't be canceled, particularly if students are already enrolled in the class. You can't accidentally, drop 150 students, which we all appreciate. And so I'm just going to kind of move ahead, and then I think I'll answer that question more detailed in a moment here. So what I'm going to do is just transition into showing you some draft photos of what maintained schedule of classes is going to look like in PeopleSoft 9.0. And so I hope you brought your sharp reading glasses because I know that the type is hard to read, but I also hope that you're familiar enough with the pages that you kind of know what you're seeing. This is the basic data page for in the new collaborative class scheduling system. And so what I hope your first instinct when you see it is that, gosh, that looks pretty much just like it does now. So we've been talking about, oh my gosh, it's going to change. Oh my gosh, it's going to change. Oh my gosh, it's going to change. But in reality, there are a lot of things that are pretty much identical to what you're seeing today. Actually, I think it might be a little cleaner and crisper than it is today. So I talked a little bit earlier about the session code up on the top there where where when you click on the lookup button, I pretend like it's interactive, but it's not. On the lookup button, when you click on that, that's where you will no longer see the actual dates. And so there will be a link somewhere off to the side that's maybe related content is what we're calling it now. And as we move down the path, we'll learn more about what that will look like. But there are some other changes on this page too. One that if your eyes are real good, you'll have noticed already, and there is not a delete button at the top of this page. Not at all. So to answer the just pause to let that sink in. What does that mean? It means you can't delete class sections anymore, starting in PeopleSoft 9.0. What's in the schedule is in the schedule. Now I'll tell you a little secret about how we'll manage that a little bit. And that's basically that you aren't able to delete class sections. In a moment, we'll see that you can cancel class sections. So any classes that are canceled during the initial schedule build open time, behind the scenes, once we get to the batch scheduling time, centrally, we will delete those for you. So everything that's been canceled, so that's how you will manage the curriculum, anything that's been canceled during that initial schedule build open, we will delete for you. And you don't need to worry about all these details right now. The training team is busy working on some fantabulous training for you guys, and so this will all be documented and you'll know it all by then. But I just wanted you to know, because that is something that it was a little bit confusing at first, like, what? There's no delete? The delete's gone. What else is gone? So up here in the top by the class type, near where this enrollment is, what you're used to seeing is a little link that says credits so that you can jump to the associated class panel, and that's not there anymore. That was a modification. So to get to that page, you are going to have to open a new tab. It won't be there for you automatically. You will see here the academic units listed here, so you'll at least see that up front, so that'll be handy. But the link to the associated class panel is no longer directly there. And maybe not everybody uses that regularly. Yes, you use it regularly.
Well, for special topics, so there's a different credit numbers.
Yes, they're noting here in the room that for special topics, with a range of credits that's used very frequently. And we'll learn more about how some of this related content works, and I'll learn more about that. And there may be some opportunities to provide, like, you may also want to link here off to the side, sort of like you're on Amazon and they tell you what you might like to do. If you're on this page, you might also like some of these. And so we'll see how that content works, but we'll definitely, maybe that you have to kind of link separately and open a new tab to go to those pages.
Is there a reason why that was taken off?
It's a modification. So the question was, is the reason why that was removed? And it was a modification. And it was a modification for convenience. The work could still get done if we removed the link, but it was really a convenience link. Well, for us all, for all of us, it's a convenience link. I link on I currently click on that link quite frequently myself. And so I know that it will be one of those things where I have to train myself and teach myself that, no, I can't do that from here. I have to open a new tab. Yeah. And we'll know there'll be some other gotchas where you'll be tooling right around in 9.0 and think, what? Where'd that go? But these are the ones that we wanted to kind of bring to your attention early so that there's some time to digest and think about, and we know you'll have questions later on too. They're not going to all jump out at you right now today, and but we wanted to get this out to you early, even though really what you're looking at right here, these pages, these are still drafts. This is inner development instance. The BAs have not completely finished all of this work, so there may be some changes. So this isn't the end of the road for these particular screenshots. Changes are still coming. But things like the modifications that we've taken away, we're not adding in modifications right now. Those decisions were made, seems like a very long time ago, and those modifications aren't going to be back in the system. But the little tweaks that they still have to make sure that it's aligned with the decisions that were made by and approved by the steering committee. Okay, I'm going to jump to the next panel, the meetings panel in maintain schedule of classes. So this one looks a lot like the panel that you see now. I think there aren't a ton of changes on this particular page other than the doozy that we already talked about. That doozy being this facility ID field that's being grayed out. Now this isn't a particularly lovely example because there isn't a facility ID in there. It just looks like it's blank. But if this class had been assigned a room, then you would see that room here. But you would not be able to remove the room or change the room or alter it in any way. You just wouldn't have access to that field.
Will, if we change the room in Astro,
I'm gonna let you speak in here.
If we change the room in Astra, will it interface and eventually show the change under facility ID?
Yes, exactly. So if you do change the room in Astra, within minutes, it will automatically populate PeopleSoft. So it's the interface is continually running, and they speak back and forth to each other about the room assignments. And then this other change on this page we talked a little bit about, and so rather than saying grade access, it really just says access. So it's not quite as intuitive as it had been when we had a modification that said grade access. Its meaning is still the same, terminology truncated. Any other questions on this meetings panel? It does look a lot like what you're used to seeing now. Okay, I'm going to jump over to enrollment control to show you some of the changes that we're seeing on this page. And there are a couple. One of them that I want to point out, it's just a big blank space, so I don't want to, we didn't call it out, but over here next to the enrollment cap and the waitlist cap, what you're not noticing is a field that we currently have in the system that says last term or last term enrollment. I'm trying to remember what the language is. But that was a modification to populate and create a field that brought forward so you could review last term's enrollment right there. So you could, manipulate what you wanted the future or the enrollment cap for the current term to be. And that won't be there anymore. Obviously, it will still exist in PeopleSoft, and you can go back to the class from the previous term and take a peek to see what the enrollment was for that term, but it's not visible to you right there. You'll also note that under, I think under waitlist capacity, there used to be a future enroll cap that would automatically, I don't know if you ever really noticed it, you probably don't manipulate that field at all, but it was a way that the university could manage full year freshman registration, and that's being managed in a different way. So that field is just gone. It was a little bit like clutter to you before because you didn't actually manipulate that field, but it's not there anymore. There's also a little bit of new functionality that's built in and delivered in PeopleSoft 9.0, and so that's that this add consent is now editable at the section level, and that's different than before. It also has the new functionality of drop consent, and that may not be something that many people use. Drop consent really is what you think it is. A student would need to have departmental or instructor consent, depending on what you selected at this section level, in order to drop the class. And so, you just need to use it cautiously, because if a student registers for the class and 2 days later changes his mind and wants to take another class that's meeting at the same time, he's going to want that consent offered ASAP to get in that other class that would now be a time conflict. And so you just want to make sure that they're set up with all ramifications in mind. And there will be more information about that as we move forward. And this is that kind of safe field that we had talked about a little bit earlier about, wait a minute, can I cancel a class when I shouldn't be canceling a class? And currently you do need to have college level approval to cancel a class in ECS period 2. I'm sorry, not during that. ECS period 4. And in PeopleSoft 9.0, you can't delete a class section, even during the schedule build. But during sort of the schedule maintenance open time, if a student enrolls in a class, then this field is automatically grayed out. So and this has to be checked in order for a class to be canceled with student enrollment. So you would never be able to cancel a class with a student enrolled at any point in time. You can cancel a class functionally. You are able to cancel a class after registration has begun if no students are enrolled. You would have the technical ability to be able to do that. And so that would be where you would continue to work with the college offices to see if they have any internal policies or guidelines on that type of cancellation. But we know that you aren't able to cancel classes that have students already enrolled in them. And it would be in the same situation as it would be now, that if you needed to cancel a class with students enrolled, you could email OCM Sched or email your college office for approval, and they would forward it on to OCM Sched for us to cancel. There is not any longer, and just to clarify, when we talked about how the security table, there is not a difference now. So there is not a special college access in CCS like there is now in ECS, and so the levels of access are all the same. And so a lot of that work will get pushed into the central office to get to be done there. All right, that's my last screenshot. So I just want to make sure, do we want to go back and look at any of them? Are there any questions about any of these 3 screenshots that I have?
By the waitlist, the
Yes.
that to give priority to the way that
Yep, there was a question about is there a schedule print button here, and there is still an option for the schedule print check box, whether you want it to hide from the schedule or not be hidden.
Sarah, West Bank has a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
The previous screen, we saw the wait list there, and the auto enroll from wait list, does that give priority?
You got it?
Yes. I'm going to mute you, Nate.
This is fun. John's trying to help me, and I'm making it more complicated for him. I'm not sure I heard the question. Did you hear the question, Heather?
The follow-up question is, there's a separate screen currently, and you can pick and choose who you're going to send an invite to enroll. If it's a senior, if it's a major, or whatever. This just has auto enroll from waitlist. I want to know more about that.
The question is more about how will auto enroll from waitlist work, and currently there's a separate screen so that we could email students individually, and I believe that the waitlist process is going to change.
Yeah, that's the short answer, is that the waitlist process is going to change. I don't know that we have too many more details that about that right now, but there will be more coming on that, and so we will share that with you as soon as we have some firmer documentation about how the process will work. But right now, we do know that it is going to change. Anything else on these screenshots while we're thinking about them?
Sarah, we have a question in East Bank. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay.
Sarah, currently for facility ID for Rochester, I put Rochester room TBA in ECS. Does that mean that I would have to go to Astra and put Rochester room TBA?
Yes. That's the very short answer. The long answer is that it's maybe. It's slightly longer than no. We're still working. That is a process that we're still currently determining the best long-term solution for not just Rochester TBA, but those of you who use room TBA or lab TBA or whatever it is, all of these virtual rooms that aren't really places, but they're placeholders. And so any of those placeholder rooms, we are in the process of figuring out the best case scenario. I will say that for the rooms that are Rochester, we may have a different solution for because they're a lot easier to identify with their location being Rochester rather than Twin Cities, West Bank, or St. Paul. But that is a process that we're still working on, and so there will be lots more to come on that. Good question. We've got another question in the room here, and so I'm just going to pop back here and let you have the mic.
Sometimes we need to schedule a class in an off-campus location, that is a non-university location. And right now the only option in that field is TBD or no room required, and neither of those are technically correct. Is there any fix for that?
Well, we can fix that now if you wanted to. If there was an actual facility that you wanted to list, that would be a possibility. It depends on what we want to put in the facility tables in PeopleSoft. And so, I think oftentimes for an off-campus location for something like a college in the schools or something like that, rather than putting Edina High School, we just put room TBA because they work out those details later. But that would be something we could work on, one-on-one. If you've got a room off campus that you use all the time, we could make it something that you'd be able to schedule. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay. Whoop. All right, so what's next, right? So here we are, we're in April, and we know that go live comes February 2015. So we've got a little bit of time, but there's a lot to accomplish in that amount of time. What you're not seeing here, but between April and September, what I can tell you is that you can expect that you will get an invitation from your college department or from your college office for kind of a smaller meeting, a college level meeting, to talk a little bit more about that, and I'll likely attend all of those as well, so that you can grill me there as well. And we may grab somebody from the training team, likely Heather, so you can grill her as well. And so that we can talk a little bit more about, like, okay, how does this impact our individual processes? Because we are all a little bit unique, right? That's why we have the CCS to begin with, is because we really aren't intending to be some sort of a centralized office. Scheduling happens in a decentralized way at the University of Minnesota, and for good reason, because you all know what it is that your department needs and what your faculty needs are and what your student needs are, and we want to be able to maintain that. And so how can we make this functionality that we have now work for you and your individual departments and centers and colleges, and also just help them start to frame what their policies and procedures as a college might be, because they're still going to be in development during this time. But once we get to September, we're going to have that message developed. We're going to know what we want to say, and we're going to start the change management team that's working on ESUP, and Sue and all of us will start communicating from the top down, because this really isn't your message to have to shove up to your superior, to your boss, to your department chairs, to your deans. We encourage you to share this with as many people as you can, but we want to make sure that it's not your responsibility to do that. And so that's also why we've been partnering with the colleges to make sure that they can help with that, and make sure that the right people are knowing that changes are coming, that you're going to need some time to attend training, that you're going to be encouraged to attend Scheduling U that we're having in the fall, even more so this year than others, because changes are coming and we're going to need to work with those. And maybe some timelines will change, and they'll need to be supportive and on board with that as well. And so we want to make sure that that message gets out for you guys in that message. We are going to have Scheduling U in early November time period, but kind of the same time period that we've had it before, and it's going to have a real strong upgrade PeopleSoft 9.0 focus. And we're going to have lots to show you, and we're going to have lots of your questions will be able to be answered in more detail, because we'll know the processes inside and out by that time. And we're also going to we'll also keep talking about PeopleSoft 8.9, the version we're currently on now, because you're still going to be scheduling in it. We can't just drop it now and let it go. We know that in November 3rd, scheduling for fall 2015 and spring 2016 is going to open, and you're going to be scheduling that in the current version of PeopleSoft. So we can't forget about what we're doing now, but we want to start looking forward and know what we're going to be working on. The real formal training for collaborative class scheduling and Astro academics, if that's necessary for you, will happen kind of in that December and January time period. That's when we think the real big push is going to be. That's the plan. So if you have, so after grades are submitted, but before the spring semester starts, so there'll be lots of opportunities in that time period to get the training, the formal training that we need. And we're doing it at that time because we know we don't want you to, do the training real early and have you forget it by the time the upgrade goes live. And then we're looking at February for when the system goes live. So at that point, there will also be a lot of additional support available to you. Any questions about the timeline or what we've got going on between now and then? Okay. Like I said, during that April to September window, there will be a number of college meetings in particular, and I really can't stress enough that the scheduling you that we're going to host this fall will be really important to attend.
Sarah, we have a question on the East Bank.
I'm sorry?
We have a question on the East Bank.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. 1 second.
Hi, Sarah. You had mentioned that individual colleges, you'll be doing meetings between now and September. Who is going to get contacted at each? Who should we expect to hear from for these meetings, these college level meetings?
You'll hear from somebody in your college. So depending on which college are you representing? I'm sorry, I can't see in that far.
That's okay. I'm from the College of Pharmacy.
For the College of Pharmacy, what'll likely happen is that rather than a college-specific meeting, so I should clarify that. So if you're on that other side of Washington, as I like to say, likely we're going to do an AHC-specific sessions, and probably a couple of them because AHC is quite large and diverse. But we'll likely try to group folks together from those groups because there are a lot of, while you're very unique, you also have some similar needs and similar processes. And so, I'm sorry, I guess I didn't answer that part. So you'll likely hear that from maybe Amy Courier or myself. We'll send out a note because Amy Courier has done workshops like that in the past.
The question for the College of Pharmacy is there a contact you'd like us to make within the college?
I'm sorry, I'm a little stumped. I'm not sure I completely...
Oh, they just unmuted me over here. I think it was directed at me in terms of College of Pharmacy contact. Actually, going through AHC would be perfect for us.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Sarah, we have another question over here.
Go ahead.
Hi, Sarah. This is Terry at Astronomy. My question is, will our college offices have the correct names of the people to contact? Because I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but sometimes information comes to the administrative assistant or even the department chairman, and it doesn't get filtered down to the proper person. And you folks have that information of who the schedulers are for each of the departments. Can that list of names and contact information be given to the college offices by you?
Is that better? That's better. So Terry, that's a good question, and I will say that what we're doing for the colleges and the folks we're working with in the colleges is supplying them with a list of, and how you got invited today, quite frankly, is because you have ECS access. We invited absolutely everybody on the Twin Cities campus who currently has ECS access, and that will be the list that we're using. And so if there should be additional people included, let me know and I can certainly add them to the list. I have a kind of a separate list I maintain of extra folks who are interested in being included. But we will then be sharing that list of people in that college who have ECS access, and all the communications will go to all of those people plus whomever the college would like to include. And that goes for moving forward, so for invitations to things like the Scheduling You and for invitations to participate in CCS training, those messages will be targeted and sent to people who currently have ECS access. And I should mention, I'm not sure if I did, that the CCS training will be required to maintain access in the system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, that is all I really wanted to make sure that I covered today, but I do want to make sure that any of the questions or comments or concerns you all have right now, we have a chance to answer any of those questions. So we did leave, 10-15 minutes for questions if you have them. And if not, if everything's perfectly clear, then we're good there too. But
Will we get new training for Astra?
yes, so the question was, will we get new training for Astra? And so yes, if you are currently using Astro Schedule but not using it to schedule classes, only using it to schedule events, there will be a kind of an abbreviated Astro Schedule training that's available for you. And I can tell you that the plan right now, the tentative plan right now is such that you know, it may be sort of the tail end. So there'll be CCS training, and then if you also need Astra Academics, you can stay for an extra 30 minutes and get that, or whatever time. I don't know how much time is, you know, if you can stay for a little bit extra to get that Astra Academics training, and if you don't, you can just leave. So it'll be tied together with the schedule.
So you're saying people already scheduled?
This is East Bank. Quick question about the retirement. I saw the first question about what jumped out to me, and what jumped out to me was the retirement of course guide and course schedule. But you said it's not exactly retiring; it's just changing. Do we have an idea what, like, the course guide and the course schedule are going to look like yet?
The course guide is retiring, and there will not be a replacement.
So there'll be no more course guide ever again.
I'm sorry?
There's not going to be a course guide, and there's not going to be anything like the course guide again.
There is not going to be a course guide anymore. The information that's included in the course guide, if you would like to continue and maintain that information, there will be, I don't know, sort of a template of sorts that people can include in class notes to include that type of information if you would like to continue to maintain that information in the class schedule. What's going away with the class schedule? So the class schedule, obviously, you know, it's, you know, what we have now. So right now you go to, you click on class schedule off of the one-stop page, and you know, you select your campus, you select your term, and up pops the class schedule, and it's very maroon and gold, and it looks different. And the class schedule will look different in PeopleSoft 9.0. I currently don't have access to what that looks like, but I do know that that is something that will be coming. And so if you are tied into that upgrade.umn.edu, that will likely be something that down the road might be something that's a sneak peek, a look at the class schedule, what it will look like. And we have these sneak peek little videos that come out, and there's been one for like the faculty center and for advisors. Sorry, I'm needing some prompting from the audience. And so, you know, the class schedule will likely be something that will be included down the road, you know, not tomorrow, not next week, but down the road. And so that you can kind of get a peek at what that might look like, because there are a lot of people who are curious, right? I mean, this is that'll impact students, it'll impact faculty, it'll impact staff, and so we all care.
Another question from West Bank.
Okay.
Just because she asked, I think it would be sad to see that the functionality of the wait list has taken us so long to get there, and to lose some of that ability to kind of really decide who's going to have limited seats in a really popular class. So I'd like to just put in a plug for continuing to have that functionality down the road.
It's a plug for continued functionality on the wait list, and we can follow up later on that specifically, but we invested time to create the wait list that we have today, so to make sure that we have that functionality going forward would be welcomed. And I think understanding more about that and getting the functionality of what's being proposed for the wait list would be helpful for all the attendees today.
Are you getting rid of the course guide?
Why are we getting rid of the course guide?
I mean, it seemed like it was always such a requirement that, you know, put out there. And are we using the catalog more, or what?
Yeah, how are students getting the info?
This is Sue Van Voris, and I can address the course guide a bit. A few years ago, we put over $600,000 into the course guide project, and then about, I'd say 3 years ago, we partnered with Disability Services to get additional people to try and engage and get information into the course guide. 0% increase. So maintaining an application at $250,000 a year where I can't get the information in there, I can't justify it. And so we are not going to be producing a course guide. However, in the class schedule, you can link to an instructor's website. So if the syllabus is out there, you can link to that information. Because in our research, it was interesting because the departments and the instructors had better information than what was in the course guide. So let's start linking to that information, then they only have to update in one spot. And at least that information will be in the course guide so you can hop over back and forth. So did we want to get rid of the course guide? Not really. We're the only campus that uses it. But we had to make some tough decisions with that. And that's why we did it.
About getting faculty to enter that info, so it's fine with me. I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but it's fine.
So when this is implemented, when ESUP goes up, is it going to be like you sign out one day and you sign in the next day and it's all different? Or is there going to be some kind of a phased or pilot implementation?
Good question. There isn't going to be a phased implementation. So it will be that one day you leave from work and you'll get lots of notices about this. So many notices you don't even want to know about it. So we hope you continue to read them, even though we send you lots, that PeopleSoft will be going offline at a date X. And it won't be that you come in the next morning and it's up. It will actually be you'll come in the next morning and there will be no PeopleSoft access for you. And you might come in the next morning and still no PeopleSoft access. But we will know what that time period is, how long it will be offline during the upgrade, and we will make sure that there are resources available to you to sort of, see some archived information during that time or such, depending on, there are some reports that are being created in that respect. All at once, yes.
Sorry, one other thing I just wanted to suggest is I know we've done trainings in 50 Coffee Hall with Christine.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we can have these trainings over here on this campus for us, right?
Yes, I see the training team frantically making notes. Any other questions at all before we wrap up for the afternoon? Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate all of your time. I know that it's not always easy to slip away. We really appreciate all the support that we've gotten so far and working with our different college partners to make sure that we were ready and raring to go. And of course, everybody on West Bank and East Bank as well over in Minneapolis, thank you so much. And please, if you have any questions, do let me know. You can send me an email and I'll include that in this presentation, and we will make sure to send this presentation out so that you have a chance to review the slides directly. Thank you.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you.